He didn't come from the academy everyone watched. No headlines followed his name. No scouts fought over his signature. When lists were written, his name was missing. When futures were predicted, his wasn't discussed. He had talent, real talent, but talent alone doesn't impress a world addicted to shortcuts and hype. Others were labeled special early. They were told they were different. They were protected, promoted, and praised. He was told to wait. And waiting teaches you something brutal. It teaches you that talent without validation feels like silence. That potential without opportunity feels like rejection. That believing in yourself becomes harder when nobody else does. Every time he showed up, he felt it. The way coaches spoke past him, the way teammates were given more chances, the way mistakes followed him longer than others. He wasn't worse. He just wasn't chosen, so he did what unchosen people always do at first. He doubted. He wondered if maybe they were right. If maybe he had overestimated himself. If maybe this dream was louder in his head than it was real in the world. At night, when the noise stopped, the questions got sharper. Why not me? What am I missing? How much longer do I keep believing with no proof? And here is the truth nobody talks about. Talent hurts more when it is ignored than when it is absent. Because you feel what you could be. You see flashes of it. You know there's more inside you, but the door stays closed. Most people quit here. Not loudly, not dramatically. They quit quietly. They start training a little less seriously. They accept average explanations. They lower the ceiling of their own ambition so rejection hurts less. But he didn't quit, not because he was confident, not because he was fearless, but because something inside him refused to die quietly. He made a decision no one applauded. If he wasn't chosen, he would become undeniable. No speeches, no announcements, just work. While others trained to impress, he trained to transform. While others counted praise, he counted hours. While others waited for permission, he built without it. Early mornings became normal. Late nights became routine. Pain became data. He studied his weaknesses like enemies. Not to hate himself, but to sharpen himself. Speed, strength, control, focus, discipline. Nothing was good enough. He didn't want to be better than others. He wanted to be better than yesterday. And this is where the story changes. Not on a big stage, not in front of cameras, but in the dark, invisible hours where no one was watching. That's where the unchosen are made dangerous. Because when you're not selected, you stop performing for approval. You stop chasing applause. You stop needing validation. You start needing progress. Every rejection hardened him. Every ignored effort sharpened him. Every closed door forced him inward toward self-mastery. He learned something chosen people often don't. Comfort creates fragility. Resistance creates force. He stopped asking, why don't they see me? And started asking, what would make me impossible to ignore? The answer wasn't talent, it was obsession. An obsession with details others skipped. An obsession with consistency others found boring. An obsession with standards others found extreme. He trained when tired. He trained when sick. He trained when unmotivated. Because discipline doesn't wait for belief. Slowly, something shifted. Not externally, internally. He stopped comparing himself. Stopped watching others' paths. Stopped measuring timelines. He realized comparison is what keeps talented people small. He wasn't late. He was being forged. And forged things take time. When opportunity finally came, and it always comes, even if late, it didn't feel like luck. It felt like payment. Because by then, he wasn't hoping to be chosen. He was ready to take the spot. The moment he stepped in, something was different. The pace felt slower. The pressure felt lighter. The challenge felt familiar. Because pressure only scares people who haven't practiced under it. He didn't explode overnight. He didn't become a miracle story. He became consistent. And consistency is terrifying to people who rely on talent alone. Mistakes didn't shake him. Criticism didn't move him. Because he had already survived worse being invisible, people started noticing. Not because he asked them to, but because results don't whisper forever. And when they finally asked, where did he come from? The answer was simple. He came from rejection. He came from being overlooked. He came from doing the work nobody glamorizes. He was talented but not chosen, so he chose himself. And that decision changed everything. Being unchosen doesn't just shape how you work. It reshapes how you think. When the world doesn't pick you, you stop expecting fairness, and that is freedom. He no longer waited for the system to reward him. He stopped believing effort guaranteed recognition. He stopped thinking talent would speak for itself. Because he learned something brutal early. The world doesn't reward potential. It rewards proof. So he stopped talking about what he could do, and focused only on what he did every single day. There was no dramatic turning point, no viral moment, no overnight leap, just accumulation, days stacking on days, hours stacking on hours, losses stacking into lessons. While others panicked when momentum slowed, he stayed calm, because patience had been forced into his bones. He had lived without momentum before. He knew how to move without applause. And that's where the gap widened. Chosen people panic when things don't go their way. Unchosen people expect resistance. Pressure didn't feel like danger to him. It felt familiar. When the lights got brighter, he didn't shrink. He sharpened. He wasn't playing to prove people wrong anymore. He was playing to honor the work. That shift is dangerous. Because when someone stops chasing validation, they become uncontrollable. He didn't need approval to stay disciplined. He didn't need praise to stay hungry. He didn't need belief from others to trust himself. He had already survived disbelief. And then something subtle but powerful started happening. The people who once overlooked him began depending on him. Not because they wanted to, but because they had to. In moments that mattered, tight situations, heavy pressure, no margin for error, he showed up calm. Not loud, not flashy, reliable. And reliability is the currency of trust. He didn't ask for responsibility. Responsibility found him. Because when things break, people look for what doesn't. Still, even then, recognition lagged. He wasn't celebrated first. He was used first. Given the hardest assignments. Thrown into the toughest situations. Expected to perform without protection, and he accepted it all. Because to someone who was never chosen, nothing feels unfair anymore. He understood something most never do. If you can perform when it's uncomfortable, you'll own the moment when it matters. While others complained about pressure, he fed on it. While others needed perfect conditions, he adapted. While others talked about mindset, he lived it. And here is the quiet truth. The world often mistakes resilience for ordinariness until it is the only thing left standing. There came a moment, small, almost forgettable to outsiders, where he did something undeniable. Not spectacular. Not theatrical. Just impossible to ignore. A performance so controlled, so precise that even bias had nowhere to hide. Silence followed. Then questions. Then recalculations. People rewatched his past, looking for signs they missed. They reframed his story to make themselves comfortable. He developed late. He needed time. He wasn't ready back then. But he knew the truth. He had always been ready to work. They just weren't ready to believe. And that didn't make him angry anymore. It made him focused. Because anger burns fast. But clarity burns long. He understood now. Being unchosen wasn't a setback. It was insulation. It protected him from entitlement, from shortcuts, from fragile confidence. Chosen people often build their identity on expectation. Unchosen people build theirs on execution. And execution doesn't crack under pressure. As his role grew, so did the weight. More eyes, more opinions, more noise. But noise only distracts those who need it. He didn't read comments, didn't chase narratives, didn't respond to comparisons. Comparison was the trap that killed talent. And he had escaped it early. He measured himself differently. Did I improve today? Did I show up when it was hard? Did I respect the process? If the answer was yes, the world could say whatever it wanted, because confidence built on work is quiet but unbreakable. And then came the moment people call arrival. But arrivals look different from the inside. From the outside, it looked like success. From the inside, it felt like alignment. Everything he had practiced for the pressure, the pace, the responsibility, finally matched the stage. He didn't rise to the occasion. He revealed what had already been built. That's what scares people most. Not sudden greatness, but delayed inevitability. Those who once overlooked him now spoke his name with certainty, as if they had always known. As if it was obvious. He let them believe that. Because explaining the cost was pointless. Only the unchosen understand the unchosen. He never forgot where he came from, not as motivation, but as grounding. He remembered the empty days, the unanswered calls, the silent rooms after rejection. Not to feel bitter, but to stay sharp. Because comfort is sneaky, and he had seen what it did to talented people. So he stayed dangerous with discipline. Dangerous with consistency, dangerous with standards. Even now, when he was finally chosen, he trained like he wasn't. That's the paradox. The moment the world picked him, he refused to change. Because the version of him that survived being unchosen was the version that earned everything. And here's the lesson buried inside his story. Being unchosen is not a verdict. It's a filter. It removes those who need approval to move forward. It keeps those who can build without it. Talent opens the door, but obsession keeps you in the room. He was talented but not chosen. And that's exactly why, in the end, he became unstoppable. Thanks for watching. If this story resonated with you, consider subscribing. See you in the next one. By the time people start calling you special, you've already learned not to believe them. Because praise, like rejection, is temporary. And the unchosen learn early not to build homes in either. He didn't celebrate loudly, didn't relax into comfort, didn't start living off his reputation. He understood something deeper now. The same world that ignores you can overvalue you just as blindly, so he stayed neutral. No highs that made him careless. No lows that made him quit. Just standards. While others began protecting their image, he kept protecting his habits. Because an image can be borrowed. Habits can't. He noticed something strange as his status grew. People who were once confident around him now acted cautious. They measured their words, adjusted their effort. Not out of respect, but out of fear. Because nothing intimidates insecure talent like someone who earned every inch. Chosen people often grow afraid of losing their place. Unchosen people are never afraid of starting over. That made him dangerous. If everything was taken from him tomorrow, he knew exactly how to rebuild. He had done it from nothing before. And that's the edge no one can teach you. When the pressure moments arrived, the final minutes, the deciding plays, the critical decisions, he didn't rush. He slowed down. Because chaos only overwhelms those unfamiliar with it. He had trained in chaos. He had lived in uncertainty. He had built his confidence in silence. The stage didn't elevate him. It exposed others. Mistakes broke people who were used to protection. Failure shook those whose identity was tied to selection. But failure didn't scare him. He had failed in private 1,000 times with no safety net. So when failure came in public, it felt lighter. He didn't panic. He adjusted. And adjustment is the mark of mastery. As seasons passed, something undeniable happened. He didn't just perform, he endured. Others burned bright and then faded. Injuries piled up. Motivation dipped. Discipline softened. Talent without foundation has a short lifespan. But his base was built on resistance. He didn't rely on emotion. He relied on systems. Sleep, nutrition, training, recovery, focus. The boring things. The unsexy things. But boring done daily becomes unstoppable. The world loves stories of explosions. It ignores stories of erosion, how consistency wears down the competition quietly. He wasn't chasing a legacy. Legacy was chasing him. Because legacy is built by people who stay when others drift away. And here's where the mindset fully locked in. He stopped thinking in seasons. He started thinking in decades. Short-term validation lost its pull. Viral moments meant nothing. Comparison became irrelevant. He wasn't competing with his peers anymore. He was competing with time. How long could he sustain excellence? How deep could his discipline go? How complete could his mastery become? That question separates greatness from fame, and fame is loud but fragile. Greatness is quiet but heavy. Young talent came in fast, hungry, confident, celebrated. He welcomed them, not with words but with his example. They saw how early he arrived, how late he stayed, how little he complained. Some tried to copy him. Most couldn't sustain it, because intensity is easy for weeks. Consistency is hard for years, and he had years in him. Why? Because he wasn't proving anything anymore. He had already proven the hardest thing, that he could move without belief, that he could build without applause, that he could stay disciplined without being chosen, that skill outlasts all others. At some point, someone asked him what changed. He paused, because from his perspective, nothing had. He didn't suddenly become better. He didn't unlock a secret. He didn't find luck. He simply outlasted the doubts, his own and everyone else's. And then he said something simple. I stopped waiting. That was it. He stopped waiting to be noticed. Stopped waiting to be selected. Stopped waiting for confidence. He acted first. Trusted the work second. Let the results speak last. And results always speak eventually. The lesson in his story isn't about sport. It's about life. It's about the people not invited into the rooms. Not promoted early, not recognized on time, the unchosen. If that's you, understand this. Being unchosen is not an insult. It's training. It teaches you independence. It forces you to build roots, not wings. It prepares you for pressure that others aren't ready for. Chosen people are given expectations. Unchosen people are given freedom. Freedom to fail privately. Freedom to experiment. Freedom to grow without labels. And when both finally meet on the same stage, only one has depth. He was talented but not chosen. So he built something deeper than talent. He built endurance. He built discipline. He built an identity. By the time the world fully chose him, he no longer needed to be chosen at all. That's the quiet irony of the unchosen. When recognition finally arrives, it arrives too late to change who they are, because who they became was shaped in the absence of applause. He had seen what early selection does to people, how it creates fragile confidence, how it replaces curiosity with entitlement, how it turns growth into defense defending a title, a label, a reputation. Being chosen early means you're always afraid of falling. Being unchosen teaches you how to climb. He watched talented people lose their hunger the moment they were validated. They trained to maintain, not to expand. They protected their status instead of chasing mastery. And slowly, almost invisibly, they stopped growing. Not because they were lazy, but because comfort is persuasive. Comfort whispers, "You've done enough." Discomfort asks, "How much more can you become?" He never stopped asking that question. Even now, when his name carried weight, he still felt the pull of those early days. The empty mornings, the silent grind, the freedom of being underestimated, so he recreated it. He trained as if no one was watching, prepared as if nothing was guaranteed, focused as if everything could disappear tomorrow. Because it could, and that awareness kept him sharp. He didn't need fear to push him. He had perspective. A perspective that said, nothing is promised, nothing is permanent, everything must be earned again. That mindset extended beyond his performance. It shaped how he spoke, how he listened, how he handled power. He didn't dominate rooms. He didn't need to. Presence isn't loud when confidence is earned. He respected process more than praise, people more than titles, and time more than moments. And that made people trust him. Not because he demanded it, but because trust follows consistency. When pressure hit organizations, teams, and systems, they leaned on him. Because when everything shakes, people look for what's solid. He had become that. And still, he never romanticized the struggle. He didn't pretend rejection was beautiful. He didn't claim the pain was easy. It hurt. It isolated him. It tested his belief. It almost broke him at times. But it taught him something priceless. You don't need the world's permission to take yourself seriously. That lesson changed everything. It's the lesson most people never learn. They wait. They wait for approval to start, for confidence to appear, for the right moment. But the unchosen learn fast. Waiting is a trap. So if you're listening to this and you feel overlooked, delayed, or underestimated, understand this clearly. You are not behind. You are being prepared. Prepared to move without validation. Prepared to endure when others collapse. Prepared to last when others peak early. The cost is high. You pay in loneliness, in doubt, in long stretches with no reward. But the return is rare. You gain independence, depth, and a foundation no one can take from you. And when opportunity finally comes, not if, when you won't rise to it, you'll recognize it. Because you've been living at that level internally for a long time. He was talented, but not chosen. And that single fact did more for him than any early selection ever could. It forced him to choose himself every day, without witnesses, without guarantees. And that choice repeated thousands of times is what separates those who fade from those who remain. In the end, being unchosen wasn't the obstacle. It was the advantage. Thank you for watching. If this resonated with you, consider subscribing for more.